Okay, this is the YouTube version of trivia for this week. Let's get started. Rules same as always. First category, in the news, 5 questions about stuff that's happened since last week. Here's your first question. This week, a South African woman, Geoziam Tamara Sitole, set a world record for the most babies delivered from one pregnancy. How many babies did she give birth to? Question 2. In what seaside UK county was the recent G7 summit with many of the leaders of the world in attendance held? Question 3. In a scary moment last week, footballer Christian Eriksen collapsed during a Euro Cup match. What country does Eriksen play for? Question 4. The dog pictured below, named Wasabi, this week won the Westminster Best in Show competition. What type of dog is it? And your last in the news, who is the new Prime Minister of Israel? The next category is called recurring roles. This is all about roles that have appeared in many movies and sometimes TV shows. I'll give you the name of the actors who have played the role. Here's your first one. Steve McQueen, 1973, and Charlie Hunnam, 2017. Your next one, there's a lot for this one. Douglas Fairbanks, Errol Flynn, and there's a bunch that I skipped over. Sean Connery, Kevin Costner, Cary Elwes, Russell Crowe, and Taron Egerton. Who did all these people play? Next you have Betty Lou Gerson, 1961, Glenn Close, and Emma Stone. Number 9, Linda Hamilton, Lena Headey, and Amelia Clark. And finally, Pat Hingle, Gary Oldman, Ben McKenzie, J.K. Simmons, and Jeffrey Wright. Okay, next category is called What Century Is It? I'm going to give you 3 events from a century. You have to tell me what century it is. Here we go. Your first trio. Charlemagne dies, Alfred the Great is crowned first king of the English, and algebra is invented. Next we have Macbeth dies in battle. There's a high point for classical Chinese science and technology with figures such as Su Song and Shen Kuo. And the Great Schism between the Catholic and Orthodox churches occurs. Question 13. The Roman Emperor Diocletian dies and is soon replaced by Constantine. Trigonometry is invented and Buddhism is introduced to the Korean peninsula. Next, Robert Walpole becomes the first Prime Minister of the UK. James Cook is the first European to land on the Hawaiian Islands, and the city of Los Angeles is founded by Spanish settlers. And your last trio, you have the Panama Canal opens, the Emu War, an unsuccessful attempt to curb the number of emus happens in Australia, and a huge explosion likely caused by a meteoroid erupting in the low atmosphere flattens over 80 million trees in eastern Siberia. Okay, your last category in round 1 is called Bands by Another Name. So I'm going to give you an alternate name for a band. You just have to tell me what the proper name is. Here's your first one. The Joint Siblings. Next we have the classic board game from Milton Bradley, first manufactured in 1979. Question 18, we have Absence of Uncertainty. Next we have Dream of Fire Lizards. And lastly, a classic video game character's childhood. Okay, let's get to answers. In the news, the South African woman gave birth to 10 babies. The G7 summit was in Cornwall. Christian Eriksen plays for Denmark. This dog is a Pekingese. And the new Prime Minister of Israel is Naftali Bennett. These 2 roles are Papillon. All these people played Robin Hood. These 3 people played Cruella de Vil. Linda Hamilton, of course, Sarah Connor. And lastly, these 5 individuals played Commissioner Gordon from Batman. What century these two events are? The 9th century. Next you have the 11th, followed by the 4th, the 18th, and these three events all occurred in the 20th century. Bands by now the name joint siblings, that's the Doobie Brothers. Classic board game, that's the Guess Who. Absence of Uncertainty is No Doubt. Dream of Fire Lizards, that's Imagine Dragons, and this last one is Sonic Youth. Okay, round number 2, your first category is called Lonely Countries. I'm going to show you an image of a country without its neighbors, and you just have to tell me what that country is. Here's your first one from Africa. Next, Asia. Next, South America. Europe. And finally, Africa again. Okay, next category, Big Pharma. This category is all about pharmacology and related stuff. Here we go. Here's your first question. Originally discovered by Pfizer in 1989 while looking for a treatment for hypertension, sildenafil is better known by what brand name? Question 27. What family has come under intense media and legal scrutiny, receiving hundreds of millions of dollars of fines for their role in fueling the opioid crisis through their involvement with Purdue Pharmaceuticals? Question 28. What popular drink was invented by American pharmacist John S. Pemberton near the end of the 19th century? Question 29. An apothecary plays a key role in which Shakespeare play? And finally, in 2018, the most commonly dispensed drug in Canada was Synthroid. What does Synthroid treat? Okay, next category is called Children's Literature. Here are your questions. Your first one, who are you most likely to find in Mr. McGregor's Garden? Question 32, who is the author of the classic children's story Charlotte's Web? Question 33, from a book by Eric Carle, what is the name of the caterpillar pictured below? Question 34, in a story by Canadian Robert Munsch, Princess Elizabeth is set to marry her own Prince Charming before a dragon burns down her castle and with it all her clothes. After the prince rebukes her for not having nice dresses, she responds by dumping his ass. What is Princess Elizabeth better known as? The last question in this category, popularized in a series of books by Norman Bridwell, what is the name of the big red dog? Okay, your last category is word trail. I haven't done this for a while. In this category, last two letters, one answer. When reversed will be the first two letters of the next answer. Here's your first clue. A word meaning self-restrained or frugal. Next one. The landmark site pictured below. And we have a fungus that infects rye and other grasses that when ingested causes hallucinations and fevers in people and animals. Next we have the gemstone pictured below, November's birthstone. And finally, what a laser does to you. Okay, let's end round two. Let's do answers. This first country is Egypt. Next we have Vietnam, followed by Peru, Austria, and finally Senegal. Big Pharma, sildenafil is better known as Viagra. The family that fueled the opioid crisis, they're called the Sacklers. John S. Pemberton invented Coca-Cola. There's an apothecary in Romeo and Juliet, and finally, Synthroid treats hypothyroidism. Children's Lit, Mr. McGregor's Garden is the home of Peter Rabbit. Charlotte's Web was written by E.B. White. This caterpillar is known as the Very Hungry Caterpillar. Princess Elizabeth is better known as the Paper Bag Princess. And this big red dog, his name is Clifford. Word trail, word meaning self-restrained or frugal, is Spartan. Next you get Nathan Phillips Square, of course. The fungus that infects rye and other grasses is ergot. This is a topaz, and a laser zaps you. Ooh, gotta delete this. Okay, let's get on to round number 3. Your first category is called Bad TV Summaries. So I'm going to badly summarize a TV show, and you have to tell me what that show is. Here's your first one. The remaining humans fight off beautiful robots or something while searching for a new homeworld. Next, we have a young man gets into a fight and for some reason has to move across the country as a result. Next, we have the human and his magic pet dog traverse some sort of weird future world destroyed by mushrooms, having encounters with a sentient piece of bubblegum and an ice wizard, among others. Question 44. 2 California state cops eat snacks or something. And your last one. Some eccentric lady tries to climb the social ladder of Coventry while holding a bouquet of hyacinths or something. Okay, your next category is called Which is Bigger? I'm going to give you a couple numeric items. You have to tell me which is bigger. Here we go, your first one. Which is bigger, the number of steps in the CN Tower or the number of pages in the original version of War and Peace? Question 47. Which is bigger, the goals scored in the career of Wayne Gretzky, or the home runs hit in the career of Barry Bonds, or the total number of regular season wins in Toronto Raptors franchise history? 48. Which is bigger, the number of sides on a dodecahedron, the number of legs on a lobster, or the number U.S. President Abraham Lincoln was? So, like Biden's 46, what number was Abraham Lincoln? Question 49. Which is bigger, the address of the British PM, the number of 400 series highways in Ontario, or the number of apostles of Jesus Christo? And your last one. Which is bigger, the square root of 1,296, the number of movies directed by Steven Spielberg, the number of flavors at Baskin Robbins, or the number of prime ministers that Canada has had? Okay, let's do general knowledge. Your first question, what does the word vicissitude mean? Is it an arrogant demeanor especially focused on elders or superiors? An unwelcome change in fortune, or an intense negative emotion or reaction generated by external stimuli? Question 52. What country singer taught us to know when to hold 'em and to know when to fold 'em? Question 53. What does a milliner make? Question 54. What British hairstylist born in 1928 who lends his name to a hair product brand is known for repopularizing a short cropped haircut known as the bob? And question 55, which religious order founded in the 16th century is formerly known as the Society of Jesus, the members of which are sometimes referred to as God's soldiers? Okay, 3-pointers. Your first 3-pointer. In the hopes of perhaps forming an even larger coalition of all the world's leading democracies, what non-G7 countries' leaders were invited to attend the recent G7 summit in Cornwall? Question 57. Name the 3 actors who played the original Angels on the Charlie's Angels TV show from the 1970s. Question 58. The NHL Conference Finals are underway with Montreal the lone Canadian representative. Name any 3 of the 4 teams to play in last season's conference finals. Question 59. What are the 3 types of shark pictured below? And your last question of the night. From what classic novels would you find the following iconic villains? Mrs. Danvers, Humbert, and Kathy Ames. Okay, let's do the answers. Round number 3. Remaining humans fight off beautiful robots while searching for new homeworld. That's Battlestar Galactica. Young man gets into a fight and has to move across the country. That's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Human is Magic Pet Dog and all this other shenanigans. This is called Adventure Time. 2 California State cops eat snacks or something. That's Chips. And this one, this main character of this show is, her name is actually Hyacinth Bouquet. It's called Keeping Up Appearances. It's actually Hyacinth Bucket, but whatever. Bigger, number of steps of the CN Tower or War and Peace. War and Peace, the original version, has 1,200 plus pages, which is less than CN Tower, which has upwards of 1,700 steps. So CN Tower is your answer. So Barry Bonds hit 762 home runs. Wayne Gretzky scored 894 home runs, both of which are less than the number of wins the Raptors have, 982. 48. There are 10 legs on a lobster. A dodecahedron has 12 sides, and Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president. So Lincoln is your answer. The British preeminent lives at 10 Downing Street. There are 12 apostles, and there are 17 400 series highways. So 400 highways is your answer. And the last one, Canada has had 23 prime ministers. Baskin-Robbins ice cream typically has 31 flavors. Spielberg has directed either 32 or 33 movies, depending on your criteria, all of which are less than the square root of 1296, which is 36. Oh, gotta get rid of these. Alright. Okay, vicissitude means an unwelcome change in fortune. The country singer that taught us know when to hold 'em, that's Kenny Rogers. Milliner makes hats, specifically women's hats. This British hairstylist born in 1920, that's Vidal Sassoon. And the Society of Jesus, they are known as the Jesuits. 3 pointers. So there were 4 countries who were invited, or the leaders were invited to attend the recent G7. That's Australia, India, South Africa, and South Korea, none of which are G7 countries. The actors who played the original angels on Charlie's Angels: Farrah Fawcett, Kate Jackson, and Jacqueline Smith. The 4 conference finalists last year in the playoffs: Las Vegas, Tampa Bay, Islanders, and Dallas, 3 of which have repeated. These sharks, this first one is a thresher, and we have a nurse shark, and this last scary looking guy is called a goblin shark. And our last question of the night, Mrs. Danvers is from Rebecca. Humbert is from Lolita. And East of Eden is where you will find Kathy Ames. Okay, that's the end of trivia for this week. Hope you had fun.